This is Taylor, the host of our new Cardmarket Yu-Gi-Oh YouTube channel. Now he knows a lot about Yu-Gi-Oh, but we're gonna find out if he can figure out if cards from Magic the Gathering are a staple that was played through the game or a stinker that was only played by a few people with a lot of optimism. So card 1 of 5. I would like you to read Dragon Master Outcast.
Dragon Master Outcast. It is a 1 red mana. Creature, human, shaman. At the beginning of your upkeep, if you control 6 or more lands, create a 5/5 red dragon creature token with flying.
Just for context for you, a 5/5 flyer is usually pretty good.
That sounds
in
good.
the upper range of creatures in Magic.
And this is a 1-cost 1/1.
Yes,
which I assume
is the lower
fine.
cost.
That's
of creatures in
fine.
Magic.
You know, the question becomes, does this stick around until 6 or more lands, which is like turn 6?
So yes, exactly. In Magic, we have a mana system, and you have to tap a land to play your spells. Things that cost 3 mana, you have to tap 3 lands for. In this case, this costs 1 red, so you tap 1 red land for it. Every turn, you can play one. So by turn 6, you could also play 6 mana spells.
Right. So that's the question. Are you ever playing this instead of a 6 mana spell? Because I would imagine the best thing you can do on turn 6 would be to spend all your mana on a big meatball.
Well, Magic is fun because you have many options. It's a world of possibilities. You could also play a 4 mana spell and a 2 mana spell, or a 5 mana spell and a Dragon Master Outcast.
Right. Is that good enough?
So for context, we want him to tell us whether this card is a staple, meaning a card that has seen competitive play in Magic, or that is generally famous for how powerful it is, or is it a stinker?
So in my mind, I'm leaning towards stinker just because the 5/5 and the 1/1 are both what we would call in Yu-Gi-Oh! A big do nothing. I think I need a little more than just a flying 5/5 out of this to make it good. I'm gonna say stinker.
Okay, I hadn't considered this yet, but I'm gonna introduce the big red thinking button of shame.
Whoa!
If you're wrong, you're punished by the noise this makes.
Oh man, that's so much more pressure.
I know. Fortunately for you, you are correct. This is a stinker.
Let's
and
go.
when this card was printed, everyone freaked out. It went up to $30 at some point because people thought you play this on turn 6 and then the next turn you just start winning. In Magic, a 5/5 flyer every turn is something we call card advantage.
Right.
Remember, Magic is slow. You don't win in 1 or 2 turns like in Yu-Gi-Oh! So over time, this seemed very strong. The issue is that a 1/1 is the littlest you can make a monster.
How would that survive more than 1 turn?
Everything kills a 1/1.
Yeah, that
right?
makes
It's the
sense.
minimal amount of damage you need to make to destroy something. So it was too hard to keep it around. If it stayed around, you won the game. But turn 6 and then waiting an extra turn to make a 5/5 wasn't enough. Good job. You have 1 point.
Woohoo!
I will show you card number 2.
Okay.
Give a read to Arcbound Ravager.
Arcbound Ravager is a 2-cost artifact creature that is gray, which I don't know what that means.
In Magic, you saw the Dragon Master Outcast. It cost 1 red, so
Yeah.
the card was red
Yes.
because it required red mana to cast. Artifacts have no color. So these two can be paid by any type of mana.
Okay, and you can put it in any deck.
Yes, but if you read the rest, you'll see that it requires a bit more of its friend.
Okay, sacrifice an artifact. Put a +1/+1 counter on Arcbound Ravager. Modular 1. This comes into play with a 1/1 counter on it. When it's put into a graveyard, you may put its 1/1 counter on target artifact creature.
So one thing that's relevant here is it's a 0/0, which normally would mean it would die immediately.
Right.
But since it comes with a +1/+1 counter, it doesn't die. It's a 1/1, like our Dragon Master Outcast. But it has an opportunity to make more.
The 1 mana 1/1 you showed me was bad. And now you're showing me a 2 mana 1/1.
It must be terrible.
It must be really bad. So as a Yu-Gi-Oh player, the first thing that I notice on this card is that its ability does not say once per turn.
Haha!
So in Yu-Gi-Oh, we have things called hard once per turns, where the card effect says directly in the text you can only do it once, or it says you can only use a card with this name once. This has no such thing. So in my mind, I'm thinking about a board full of artifacts. You sacrifice all of it, and suddenly this is a gigantic creature. I don't know if there's ways to like make a bunch of artifacts really easily or not, so that's a piece I'm missing.
Artifacts are very common in the game of Magic. Sometimes you have to pay for them, like this one that costs 2. Some of them are free. There's even some that are lands. that are just happen to be artifacts as well.
Okay, so if you have a bunch of artifacts, you get to pick which ones die. You don't have to do all of it. You can do some of them for the plus counters. You can leave the other ones that you still need. Even if this got to like 2 mana, like 3/3, 4/4 kind of area, I think that's good enough for turn 2. I like this better than the first one for sure. I'm gonna say Arcbound Ravager staple.
Yeah, congratulations! Yes, absolutely. This card was a stone cold beater because not only can it get big itself, but say you swing in, and if your lands are artifacts, and you play random artifacts at the same time, and everything in your deck is an artifact, literally almost every card. If you attack once and say you sacrifice everything and make this a 10/10, that's already half your opponent's damage. But then say they decide to target this, you can then sacrifice it and put all its counters on another creature that happens to be attacking. So it made it that every threat you had was potentially lethal.
Right.
That combined with some creatures that only need to deal 10 damage to win the game, for example, this card made a lot of people leave Magic the Gathering. Tell us what you think of Hogak Arisen Necropolis.
Hogak Arisen Necropolis. I think he's got a funny name, I'll tell you that.
He does!
So it's 5 of the colorless, and then these are, they're black or green, I guess?
It's exactly as it sounds.
Yeah, okay, great. He is a legendary creature avatar. You can't spend mana to cast this spell. Okay, interesting already. Convoke and Delve. Each creature you tap while casting this spell pays for 1 or 1 mana of that creature's color. Oh, each card you exile from your graveyard pays for 1. He has Trample?
That just means that if, say, a 1/1 Dragon Master Outcast blocked it, and this dealt 8 damage to it, 1 damage would go to the Dragon Master Outcast, and the 7 remaining would go straight to the player.
Okay. In Yu-Gi-Oh, we would call that piercing damage.
Ooh.
If you attack defense position and it has piercing damage, it goes through the opponent. Wow, what an interesting card. Let's say you're playing some kind of swarm deck and you just have a lot of, like you say, 1/1 chumps on the field.
Yeah.
You tap them all and you get a huge 8/8 without even using any of your mana for the turn. That's the main thing, is that you can't use your mana to play this, but that also means you can use your mana to also play something else at the same time as this potentially. And it has Trample, and you can recast it if your opponent kills it from your graveyard.
You still need to exile a bunch of cards from your graveyard or have a lot of cards.
Yeah. There's no way this can be bad, right? What is the earliest turn you could get this out? You're not going to have 7 creatures on your board very quickly. You're not going to have 7 creatures in your graveyard that quickly.
They don't need to be creatures.
You're right.
Oh, the Yu-Gi-Oh! In you.
I didn't read the card. Each card you exile from your graveyard pays for 1. Oh, I have a bad feeling you're going to tell me this is bad, but I cannot see a way this is bad. I have to say it's a staple. It seems so good.
I came here to press this button so many times,
Yeah.
and the viewers have yet to hear the sound it makes because you are absolutely correct. Hogak Arisen Necropolis was there's a thing called Hogak Summer, which is a time where people just kind of stopped playing Magic because no one could beat Hogak until they banned it.
That's, how early would you get this card out?
Like turn 2.
Turn 2?
Yeah, and not only was it just a super powerful beater because putting an 8 with Trample on turn 2 is very strong, and then if they kill it, you get to play another one.
Yeah.
But there was even this combo deck that allow you to sacrifice a creature and then mill a player for the creature's power. So you would mill yourself a few times with Hogak because it would mill yourself 8 and you would be enough to then play it, and then you could start milling with other combos and mill your opponent out.
Wow, that's amazing.
Cheating on mana is incredibly powerful in Magic the Gathering. Okay, so far, you've got a perfect record.
Love it.
Let's see if you can keep it up.
Pressure's on now.
With Duskmantle Seer.
Duskmantle Seer. He's a 4 mana creature vampire wizard with flying. I do know what flying means. At the beginning of your upkeep, each player reveals the top card of his or her library, loses life equal to that card's converted mana cost, then puts it into his or her hand.
Converted mana cost, which is now called mana value, is the total cost of the creature.
Right.
So Arcbound Ravager would be 2. This would be 4. Hogak would be 7. Dragon Master Outcast would be 1.
Yeah. So you get an extra card, you take some damage. Your opponent also gets an extra card and takes some damage.
Yes.
Okay. That's so hard to evaluate.
In Magic, you have these things called symmetrical effects, which normally are meant to be, as it says, symmetrical, where both you and your opponent are benefited the most. But say your whole deck are things that cost 1, and your opponent's decks are all Hogak or Risen Necropolises.
So you're forcing them to take 7, you're getting an extra card for 1. I can maybe see that, like top end of an aggro deck kind of a look to it, where you just have a bunch of small stuff and you like get it all out, you do as much damage as quickly as you can. This comes down to like help you when you've run out of cards in your hand, maybe do that extra like couple damage to finish your opponent off. I'm not blown away by this card. Comparing it to Hogath and comparing it to the Ravager seems like a bit of a stretch in my mind. I think I'm gonna go with Stinker.
You are frustratingly good at this. Yes, when this card was printed, when it was first spoiled, there's a card in Magic called Dark Confident, and I assume you guys do this in Yu-Gi-Oh as well. During spoiler season, when the cards are being announced, we will always compare the power level to a card that does basically the same thing that used to be good.
Yeah.
There's a card in Magic called Dark Confident, the great one. It's a 2-mana 2/1 that does the same thing, but only for you. And of course, for 2 mana, drawing an extra card every turn is pretty good.
Yeah.
So people saw this and thought, oh, well, it's 2 mana more, and it does it to your opponent, but it's a 4-power creature, and maybe the like uneven balance makes this good enough. It didn't. Well guessed. I will show you one last card.
Last card.
If you get this right, you have the best score at this table for Staple or Stinker ever.
Oh my God. Let's do it. I'm ready. I'm ready.
What do you think of Soul Ring?
Soul Ring is 1 mana artifact. Tap to add 2 to your mana pool.
Of note, the 2 mana it taps for is colorless mana, so that could only play an Arcbound Ravager or the colorless cost on a card. You can't pay for the red of Dragon Master Outcast with this.
This is different than the Ravager because that's a creature.
You can attack with the Ravager.
Yeah, this is just an artifact.
Yes.
So how do artifacts work?
They just sit on the board. They can't attack or block. You can't attack them. And they have an ability. In this case, the ability is to add 2 mana.
Here's the thing, right? Like in Yu-Gi-Oh, we obviously don't have mana. But I do understand the concept that Magic is bound by the fact that you play 1 land per turn. So on turn 1, you have 1 mana with your land that you play. On turn 2, you have 2 mana with the land that you play. You play your land for turn to spend 1 on this, tap it, and you're already at 2. So you're already playing with more mana than you would have if you didn't have this. Then by the next turn, when you would be on 2, you're actually on 4. So you're doubling the amount of mana at the second turn of the game, I guess. I can't get over the fact on turn 2, you will have 4 mana in your pool. That seems ridiculous to double the amount of mana you have available, even if it is 2 colorless. Because if you don't have this, you have your lands and you're tapping for your colored mana anyway. So the chances you have the color you need with your 2 lands is already high enough that adding 2 colorless I feel like is just too good. So this has to be a staple.
You are thinking like a Magic player.
Yay!
That is excellent.
We did it.
100%. You're not allowed to play this in any 1v1 format because it's obviously way too good to play a 4-mana spell on turn 2.
Yeah, that seems insane.
This is the most sold card on Cardmarket in Magic ever.
Wow.
The only format you can play it in is called Commander. It's the most popular format of the game. It's a 4-player format. There's even a debate within that game, within Commander, whether it's actually disadvantage for you to play it on turn 1 because it makes you too much of a target.
So everyone else starts attacking
you because
they
clearly
see
you have such a large advantage. This card is one of the best cards in the game of Magic the Gathering. I thought this would stump you because Yu-Gi-Oh doesn't have a mana system.
I mean, you do the math for a second, you know? It seems insane, so.
Yes, you heard it. I did not stutter. We have a Yu-Gi-Oh channel again. If you were impressed by Taylor here, you can go watch it. There's the same content we have for Magic, but for Yu-Gi-Oh, all coming up soon. And I mean, you didn't get to hear the button, so do you want the audience to hear the sound? It's really nice.
I will do it just for them. I know they really want to hear it.
It's beautiful. Do it again.
Yeah, that's really good, isn't it?
Oh, you love it. I know it.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, that's the stuff.
That's the stuff right there.
Oh!